Support his purpose. Believe in him. Give him feedback using your feelings. Appreciate him habitually, and physical surrender. In this video, I want to talk about 5 things men deeply appreciate having from their girlfriends and wives and why they're so addictive to men. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, great to have you here. Let's dive right in. The first is support with his purpose. Every man needs a purpose to feel stable for his woman. This helps him center himself so that he can be the emotional rock of the relationship and so that he can provide trust, safety, and security to you. This purpose is very important to him because it grounds him in those moments where even he might struggle with his own emotions or the emotionality of having a woman and later children in the picture. So purpose very much drives a man, and purpose will come before love for 99% of masculine men. In fact, I dare say all of masculine energy men will put purpose before love. This isn't a bad thing. This is actually what makes him trustworthy. But it is important that you as a woman, when you're dating, really consider whether or not you support a particular man's purpose. Because if later on you feel out of alignment with that purpose, there's going to be a ton of friction in the relationship. There's a recent example of this, and I'm going to get a little bit political for a second here. It's September 2024 right now, and there's an election cycle on in the US. And you may have noticed there's been very little word from Melania Trump. And while I'm not a big election watcher, we can see how that basically she hasn't been on the election trail whatsoever. Donald's out there, Donald's doing his thing, love him or hate him, he does his thing. But there's been no sign of Melania whatsoever. And it is interesting to me that the possible first lady and previous first lady is really communicating she just doesn't want to be there for this run. I think that's fascinating because probably when she married him, she thought, okay, I've got a very confident, out there, maybe egotistical, whatever you want to call him. I got this great man who's got plenty of money to raise my kids with, going to live a nice life between Florida and New York. And here she is with him running for yet another presidential campaign. Now, whether he wins or he loses, I think it is interesting that we can clearly see that she's doing her own thing here. And that's a purpose that while she is sticking by him, she's not as involved this time around. And I have no doubt that there is some friction she puts up with in that relationship with his continuing presidential runs and ambitions. So that is a little example of the friction that can be caused by not being fully aligned with a man's purpose, with your man's purpose. So make sure when you choose a man, as best as possible, you understand what he sees his purpose is, how he sees that purpose continuing throughout his life, and that you are in support of that purpose. It aligns with your values, and you're okay with him doing that possibly for the rest of his life. The second big thing is your belief in him. You believing in a man is one of the biggest jet fuels that you can put into his system because people tend to become what we expect of them. If you've ever noticed, if you, for example, don't trust men, have you noticed how you tend to attract untrustworthy men? Or if you think a man's going to let you down, often they fulfill that prophecy. People tend to become what we think of them because we project that on them. We see it through a confirmation bias. We see their actions through that bias, and then all of a sudden they're defending themselves and they're becoming that person right in front of us. The opposite, though, can also be true. We can have a positive bias that people can come into. So as a coach, I use this. Imagine if a client comes to me and she has all these blocks and I see her just as she is with all the blocks and I take on all the blocks. Oh yeah, I guess you can't do that because of where you live and because of your health. And yeah, I guess you are too shy for that. Can you imagine? I'd be a terrible coach if I saw a client the way she sees herself. So I need to see a client for their full positive potential, for who they can be and who they can become without their blocks. And we often do this with children. We see, I've got a very young daughter right now. She's a bit too young for this, but we see children as their potential, not just as they are. We see who they can become when they improve themselves with that belief in them. So belief is really important because whatever belief someone puts on you, you'll likely adopt it. Now, if you have someone who doesn't believe in you, like a toxic friend or family member, you can get rid of them or set boundaries. But this is a partner you're choosing. So you need to make sure you believe in him. Please do him the justice that if you don't believe in him, don't be with him. Like, don't do that. Let him find someone who believes in him because he will become that and he will continue to become that. If you don't believe in him, find a man who you do. Belief, especially as a man speaking here as well, Sam's belief in me, it just continues to fuel me and it just continues to remind me that, yep, I'm great. I can do it. I've got this. If she had the opposite, it would be, I shudder even thinking about how challenging that would be to deal with. So belief in a man, it's super empowering for us. We want to step up and be that person when you see us as that person, and the opposite is completely crippling. So support him, support his purpose, believe in him. The third is give your feedback using feelings. I talk about this a lot, and I know sometimes I sound like a bit of a broken record on this, but because vulnerability is naturally unnatural, as in vulnerability in nature tends to get you killed, we have an aversion to it. And in our intimate relationships where we tend to be the most scared or the most triggered, vulnerability can disappear so quickly when our trauma gets triggered or activated. And this is why it's so easy, especially for a woman who needs to lead the feelings domain of the relationship, to slip into thoughts, to slip into cognition, especially now masculinized world today where a lot of women are working jobs that require more masculine energy. You've got to be careful to stay vulnerable in your relationship and to continue to give feedback using feelings. Know what feelings are, and more importantly, know what they're not. In the English language, saying I feel does not mean you are sharing a feeling. It's what comes after that's very important. And in fact, anytime you say I feel like, you're already not sharing a feeling. I feel like you don't care. I feel like I'm not important. None of those are feelings. They're all thoughts. So be careful when you're sharing feelings, because if you can share an actual feeling, it means your heart is staying open. It's going to make you vulnerable. It's a little scary, but the best way to keep a relationship strong is to keep your heart open. If you do, yes, you could still be hurt and you could even still be abandoned. It is true. This is why you want to do it from the beginning, so you make sure the guy is safe to do it with later on. But at least if you're doing it from your end, if that relationship does break up or if you walk away, you can do it knowing you did your piece, knowing you played your part, knowing you did everything you could. Whereas if you're getting triggered and defensive as well, how do you know whether or not he might have, basically, how do you know that you weren't part of the problem too? So stay open with your feedback when you're giving feedback on literally any behavior change that you want from him. Make sure you stay open, make sure you use feelings. 4, gratitude as a habit. Hedonic adaptation will always take us back to a similar happiness set point in our brains. About 50% of this is genetic. So what this basically means is that, unfortunately, if we go from quite a bad relationship to quite a good one, it's a little bit like winning the lottery. It's really incredibly amazing at first and we hit this big high, but then we adapt to it. Now, biologically speaking, hedonic adaptation makes a lot of sense. It keeps our nervous system, wherever we are, whatever happens to us, at a relatively middle point. We can't be happy and ecstatic all the time because it takes too much energy and it takes emotion of surprise. It just wouldn't be viable. But we also can't be sad and depressed all the time if we're going through some tough times. This is why you'll see videos of kids from Africa who are basically living in poverty, and somehow they've adapted and they actually look quite happy a lot of the time. Now, you could argue they have tribal connection and social connection that we in the West don't, but a big part of that is going to be hedonic adaptation. It's wherever you put a human being, they find a happiness set point and kind of adapt to it. The hard part of this is it can turn gratitude into expectations. So you go from a really bad relationship to a really good one, but all of a sudden, after a while, you get used to it. And that's your set point. So anything below that is now below your expectations. It used to be something you were grateful for because it was up here and surprising. But now you've adapted, that's just your expectations. And expectations are the enemy of gratitude. As soon as you start having expectations, you just assume it will happen without a sense of appreciation. And you get pissed if it's taken away, because now the set point's up here, so anything below that feels like you're being robbed of something. The reason all this is important is because once we reach that point of expectations, now we're not going to be as grateful because we have this, okay, that's how it should be, instead of, oh, I really notice this and I really appreciate it. Our brains will literally not even point it out to us as much anymore because it becomes an expectation. It's not a new or novel thing in the environment anymore. So it's literally harder to be grateful for because we literally don't notice it in the same way. Our brains adapt to it. This is why you've kind of got to habitualize it with much more purpose. Before bed, do 3 appreciations for your partner or 1 appreciation. Send your partner an appreciation text each day. Literally attach it to another habit that you do. Put your shoes on, appreciate your partner. Brush your teeth, appreciate your partner. Go to work, appreciate your partner. Find a way to make it as habitual as brushing your teeth, because if you don't, it will sink into expectations and then you will probably have a husband or partner who doesn't feel appreciated. Now, of course, that also has to go in reverse. I'm just giving you the man's perspective here. And number 5, physical surrender. There's nothing more beautiful to a man than a woman who has physically surrendered to him, where she's relaxed, where she feels safe with him, where she's completely opened up her body to him. I don't need to give you a spiel on how much men love sex, but I can certainly talk about the difference between sex that's just sex and sex where the woman has truly surrendered her body and heart, it is just the most incredible experience for me as a man to witness that. And any man you talk to who's in his masculine will agree with this, that when a woman has truly surrendered to you, to us as a man, it's validating, it makes us feel useful, it makes us feel masculine. We can tell that you feel great, you feel feminine, and it's basically our brains telling us, yep, you're doing the right thing, your woman is responding to you, you're doing good as a man. Physical surrender requires emotional safety. So a lot of the time you need to do the other habits in this video first before you might feel comfortable doing that, or the relationship might have to be built more. But once you get to that point, that physical surrender, yeah, I can't tell you how valuable that is to a man. And as well as once we've lost it, if your heart closes and we lose it, how much regret there is for us in never having that again. So those are 5 big things that you can put into your relationship, or put into your relationship more often, so that your man feels absolutely lucky as all hell, incredibly grateful and just happy to have you there. Luckiest guy on earth that he's got you in his life. Do those 5 things a lot, and you've no idea what you'll get back in return from him. It'll just be a beautiful experience for the both of you. That's the video. If you are single right now and you want a man like that, I've got my no man, no fee guarantee, so feel free to book a consult. I'll tell you all about it. Otherwise, hit the subscribe button with the little bell and leave a comment below with your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. I'll see you on the next video very soon.